are Liz and Elizabeth from Simple Simon & Company, and we're so excited to introduce our brand new Summer Quilt Along.
It should be a lot of fun. Our quilts are inspired by nautical flags, which I totally love, so we're excited to get going.
We're gonna do a traditional quilt and a modern quilt, but they'll have all like mix and match blocks so you can kind of make the quilt you want, or we'll have patterns and kits available if you want to make one exactly like ours.
All right, so they're all gonna be 10-inch blocks and we're just gonna jump right in and get started. So piled up for Liz, I already have strips cut to make the block that we have down here. So these are all strips that are 10 inches long and 2.5 inches wide, and she's gonna start sewing these together. While she's working on that, this block is actually the letter C from the nautical alphabet. All the nautical flags actually comprise an alphabet, and this one is the letter C that we're sewing up first. So all she did was sew it together, right sides together, sewed it all the way through using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now today we're working on the Baby Lock Rachel sewing machine, and she is using her J presser foot, and she is using stitch number 15, and that gives you a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance.
So as you can see, I'm just lining up the edge of my fabric with the edge of my presser foot, and we'll get a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we've got our block all sewn. We just have one last step, actually two, but we'll talk about that at the end.
All right, so I'm gonna bring it over here and I'm going to press. Now I usually skip a lot of steps when I sew. I'm more of like a cowboy sewist. Yes, she follows the rules, I don't, but I never forget to press. I love to press. So what we're gonna do is I've turned it over so the wrong side is facing up. And when I press, I like to press away from the light side and towards the dark side. So we're gonna be Star Wars, we're gonna go towards the dark side. So I'm going to just nuzzle my iron in here in these rows, and I'm going to be pressing my seam just over the white, over onto the dark blue. Now I'm doing this because a lot of times you can see through the lighter fabric and you can see your seams underneath. So I just personally, it's my personal preference, like to press over towards the dark side. So you can see I'm just pressing the lights onto the dark.
Well, and I'm just going to point out one thing that you're doing. So you can kind of see how she's tugging a little bit on the fabric as she's doing it. When I first started quilting, I didn't really do that a lot, and I used to get little lines where I didn't get my seams all the way open. So that's a good tip or trick, is just to kind of tug that fabric open to make sure the seams are all good to go.
Once I get the back the way that I like it, I'm just going to go over this one more time. Once I get the back all pressed the way I want it, I will flip it over to the front side, and then I will give it one more good pressing. I'm going to watch for those creases in my fabric and just make sure it's really nice and crisp and flat. And pressing just makes your quilt blocks look more professional. It makes them fit together nicer and just looks awesome.
It's just a good habit to get in. The better pressing you have on your blocks, the better your end product of your quilt will look like. So here's our two quilt blocks, the one we started out with and then the one that we just made. There's going to be one more step, but we're actually going to show you that in another video, exactly how to do it. But you'll want to trim your block or square your block back up to 10 inches square for each of the ones that we're doing for this quilt.
Okay, so what we've made here is our nautical quilt block. It's the letter C, or it means affirmative when you're sewing.
Aye, Captain.
And you might recognize this from, if you're a quilter, you might recognize this block from your quilting in the past. So basically all we did was make a rail fence quilt block. So you're probably used to seeing it done in pattern fabric, but because we're doing actually a nautical quilt block, it looks like this, and this really is a nautical flag and a quilt block, and it's done. 10 inches by 10 inches. We're gonna have a whole bunch more blocks to show you, and we hope you'll join us for our next part. See you then.